Hello, welcome to SquishiVision, where I have just finished watching the final episode of... I think my microphone's too loud. Of, Andor, Rick's Road. So this is my immediate reaction. I'm not gonna go into the detail of Easter eggs. Not that this show is one that's inclined to have many in them. This is my immediate reaction to the episode. Immediate thoughts, I watched it once, and then my thoughts for the entire series. Pretty strong. I don't think it was a strong episode. I see a lot of people praising it as a kind of a nice culmination. I think it was a culmination. I don't think it was the strongest episode. I think the prison arc, excuse me, blows a lot of things out of the water. But it's a pretty good. It lands as a finale goes. It lands. It adequately culminates the arc of Andor's a reluctant hero, and all of the right things in place for him to like become in line with the becoming an actual rebel rather than someone who's just fighting to survive. Some of a speech, the rebel manifesto, seeing how people around him act, it was great. So yeah, he does return back home for his mother's funeral, and different people are there for different reasons. There's a one weak point which I'll get to later, but obviously the Empire is there, led by Dedra, in order to capture him alive so they can find out who Axis is. Oh gosh, what's his name? Luthen and his pair, and Luthen and Cinta. And oh gosh, why am I blanking on names? Do this every time. Do this every time. And Vel, they're there as well, to try and kill him before he can be interrogated. And then obviously the citizens of the place that they're in, I forget what it's called now. They're all there to do their bit. So yeah, there's different kind of people there. So yeah, and it just shows. I mean, it does. Okay, so I guess to try and get some coherence here, because I'm not being very coherent. Let's talk about the secondary bits of the episode. There's obviously the plot with Mon Mothma and her family, and we see Mon Mothma accusing her husband of getting into gambling because he has a gambling problem. He denies it, and I think he's telling the truth, and I think she knows he's telling the truth. I think she's trying to do that so that when the driver eavesdrops, he'll make that when he eavesdrops, he'll carry that message along to the Empire, to the ISB, and they'll start getting wrong messages. And I think he's trying to cover her tracks to the money in a different way, and by making it seem like it's to do with, I mean, I already suspect that maybe his banking problems is the reason why they're moving a lot of money, put off the Sense Rebellion. But then it ends with her introducing her daughter to the to Davo Skolden. She introduces her daughter Davo Skolden, and his son rather, and there's obviously the indication that she might get betrothed, and that's her sacrifice. So that's a rather minor kind of just epilogue to their story, doesn't focus, but obviously Genevieve O'Reilly is fantastic. She acts so much in the brief scene she's given. She, her size, her look, the glances she makes, but then the act she puts on, it's just so fantastic. And then there's also the other kind of epilogue, which is the ISB successfully kills Krieger's group. It happens off screen, but we see the report come through. Krieger, all of his men die. Dedra wishes to took some survivors, but they were like, this is about making statements, not about tactics. And yeah, so that's kind of epilogue to that story. But the main thing happens on the planet, and around Rick's Road. And yeah, so very prepared for the funeral. Andor returns, sneaks in. A spy reveals that he's there, but to be honest, it doesn't really make much of a difference because they already were assuming he was going to be there anyway. This badge is very low damage. And so yeah, he finds out that Bix is being held captive, so his whole thing is, oh, I want to go and rescue Bix. And then like, so he goes, he sneaks. I'm not sure how much of his plan relies on the plan of what the rest of the dwellers of the place plan to do, or if it's just a simultaneous thing. I mean, his plan didn't really rely on the funeral happening. I mean, he knew the funeral was happening anyway, and he'd been there at the same time. It's a coincidence, but it happened anyway. But the actual riot that breaks out doesn't make anything better for him. Except, I guess it makes Mikey's escape easier, but I don't think that was planned. But yeah, he avoids essentially actually being spotted by any Imperial people, or at least the ones who do spot him get killed almost immediately. No one even glances at him escaping, no one even goes, "That's Andor!" and as he runs away in the distance. As far as I know, he was never there. So he successfully manages to get Bix, and he leaves. And he gets them all on the ship away. I'm kind of jumping that plot line before I go to the plot line. And then he also spots Luthen, who is witnessing everything that's happening, and he clocks on that Luthen came there because he was there, and Luthen was there to kill him as a loose end. And Andor interestingly puts like the gun in Luthen's hand, metaphorically. I mean, well, metaphorically, he physically leaves a gun for Luthen to shoot him with, but says you can either shoot me or you can take me on as a as part of your rebellion, part of your cell. And Luthen, I think, actually makes a pretty good call. I mean, he's clearly a good to do the kind of spy mastering that he's doing. You need to be a good judge of character. You need to be good at reading between the lines. You need to be good at kind of inciting people. And he's established as doing this. So I think it's quite clear that seeing what Andor does, and Andor's kind of gesture of giving him basically power to kill him if he wanted to, I think as a spy master, that's a pretty bold gesture of putting a pretty good bold gesture. So I think he'd be right to smile. Obviously, we know, but I think he knew. But as far as me, I'd be like, yeah, I mean, he's clearly made a gesture here. That's pretty bold. And that's where we end Andor's story. And Andor during that time sees, so as part of Marva's funeral, a pre-recorded hologram gets played, and Marva's hologram is basically, "Oi, fight the fascists!" But in a not by accent. And her talking about her pre-mortem message that she passed on via Brasso to Andor about loving him and knowing he'll do the right thing, and her thing about fascists need to not let them walk over you. The way you're gonna survive is by fighting them. And it's clear that's pushed him. He was already being very much pushed that way, and he was already becoming a revolutionary, even if it wasn't intended by everyone around him. So that was great, and you could see. I mean, it wasn't clear how much he could hear of Marva's speech, but I think it was implied that he could hear all of it when he was in the hotel, and you can kind of see on Diego Luna's face his kind of mentality shift because of that. So that's great. But yeah, like a lot of the book episode, a lot of the kind of the shining gem of this episode was not Andor's story, but the One of the Ring parallel to Andor's story, and that was what was happening on Rick's Road. Basically, the funeral happens. I can't quite get what happened that went wrong for the Empire. Maybe it was they started the funeral early, because I seemed surprised when also happy 59th anniversary of Doctor Who, only 10 more years until 69th anniversary of Doctor Who. Nice. They seemed a bit taken aback when they start the funeral with the hammers. I'm like, well, did they know it was happening? Is that surely they're like, oh, that's just a funeral happening. So I guess what went wrong is they started the funeral early, which might tried into Andor's plan. So it freaks them out. They all get very panicky. It's really amazing. It starts off with the kind of a hammer, and then there's discordant music as everyone kind of tunes their instrument, but then it kind of becomes more accordion, and it's clearly, the sound landscape is clearly meant to be, oh, everyone is coming together. It's about unity, about how people are stronger together. You know, apes stronger, apes together strong. Well, I've not seen Planet of the Apes, but it's meant to be the whole like unity thing. That's the theme running about the show, and you see as the different bands come together, the play becomes more accordant, becomes more union, and it becomes an actual song that brings everyone together, and everyone walks as a crowd, and it freaks out the Empire because obviously they don't want the unity. And then, you know, they stop at the Rick's Road. Marva plays her own kind of eulogy, which basically ends with "fight the fascists," and obviously the fascists are like, "No, wait, bad," and runs over, puts his cloak over the hologram, which sparks off a riot. He gets whacked, and then, you know, Brasso gets into the brawl. One of Marva's final words was, "If I could do it again, I'd wake up early morning just to fight them." So he basically uses the brick which her ashes are mixed into as a weapon to fight them, which is pretty badass, actually, to be honest. And then as rights do, it escalates. One of the kids whose older brother, father, I can't quite tell, got hanged by the Empire because he was the one who was running the radio for Bix. Throws basically a massive bomb, and he throws it well enough that it explodes a bunch of grenades, and, you know, things escalate, causes the Ice Base panic and tell their stormtroopers to start executing people and shooting indiscriminately, and so they like kill a whole bunch of people. It goes crazy downhill, but it's a spark of rebellion that started off like people were revolutionized, and it's the first kind of move. It shows the frank kind of brutality of rioting, and it shows it as an ugly thing, but you know ultimately it's a necessary thing, part of it. And even like we paused on Luthen's face, and, you know, Stellan Skarsgård does a fantastic job as he's listening to Marva's speech, and it's kind of influencing his approach. I mean, this point of it turns it around, because he has got a pretty good kind of political positioning, but you can tell it influences him. The weakest part of this episode, and the part I didn't really get, was Cyril's part in it. He didn't really do anything. He was just kind of there, and then as Dedra kind of gets almost hilariously and quite justly for a fascist trampled on, as she gets pulled into the riot, he basically comes and rescues her at gunpoint for some reason, and they have a moment. I don't know if it was meant to be a moment. I mean, her having a panic attack and saying "thank you for saving me" isn't her falling in love with him, but it was shot. They put the characters in a cramped space, you know, staring at each other's kind of face. It was shot very like romantic coded. That made me uncomfortable. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have limited sympathy for Dedra as a Nazi, but she's also, you know, she's a strong female character. Villains can be strong characters. So she's a strong, and, you know, women obviously. So she's a strong female character, and I love the part of the episode where Cyril basically was a stalker, and she was disgusted, and she didn't, you know, see it as a power move. She wasn't attracted by that persistence. She was disgusted, as you should be, because stalking people is not romantic. So to then be like, well, because he was stalking her and saved her life because of his obsession, she now likes him, is a bit weird. But I mean, we never saw what happened after that, so it didn't really land on it, but it seems to be leading that way, which is very uncomfortable with. This series has been one of the most, I think people are pretty much agreeing, and I don't think I'm saying anything revolutionary here, one of the strongest bits of television this year. And definitely probably the strongest. I mean, okay, on par with Mandalorian, but in a different way. Mandalorian was strong, but it was like very much, I mean, even Mandalorian was like inconsistent. It was just still good. It was inconsistent, but it was always good. I mean, it was. I think a lot of its attraction was its reliant on tropes and Western tropes, but it did it very well. But this was just good. Like each episode delivered escalation. It was bold. It broke the mold. It didn't, it talked about political ideas that lots of shows only allude to, like only doing like kind of passing or underline. Like you have to like you have to like interpret certain lines as being socialist or pro-revolution or pro-violent action against fascism, because the show will shy out of saying it explicitly. But this show is explicit. It was, and I pretty appreciate for that. Anyway, shrimp after shrimp. I'm not sure if this episode kind of culminates it in terms of impact, but certainly in terms of narrative. And yeah, I'm interested. And then okay, we should talk about the post-credit scene, which I think confirmed our suspicions and the irony that the prison Andor was in, he was building components that were going to be used in the Death Star, because of course he was, and that's I'm kind of, it was predictable, but I'm kind of glad they confirmed that, because that's kind of the code to what I wanted to see. So yeah, this whole series was good. And then it has set us up for a good place for season 2, and I think it adequately explains why Andor is where he ends up being. And someone who didn't particularly care for Andor in Rogue One, because we didn't really land the character wholeheartedly. This changes that, and yeah, interested to see where next season goes, which is a bit different. It's 12 episodes, but it's going to do more time jumps, so I'm assuming we're going to have arcs which don't flow neatly into each other and characters jump around. Interested to see where Bix and Brasso and trying to find the other character, he's not listed here. And B and all these characters end up and where they play in the bigger, because it would almost seem like there's no really place for them in where Andor's going, certainly not in his life for Rogue One. He doesn't think about them or mention them or anything, and that kind of could just be writing, but and the order of production, but nonetheless, interesting to see where kind of they turn up. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Andor. Really good. I know they're just about to start filming, or the middle of filming, or there's somewhere in the filming schedule for season 2. And yeah, I'll see you guys after this, because I'm going to watch the new trailer for Avatar, because that's been dropped. And then I'll see you on Friday for my reaction to the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. So thanks for checking this out, and I'll see you soon.